We are back for another, and we thought we'd just take a moment to recap the journey we've been on. We've been talking about the stories that we carry, how we discover what's actually true about those stories, and how that changes the way we navigate the relationships, leadership, and systems that we find ourselves in. We've shared a lot of practical ways to challenge those stories so you can figure out what's really true. And we've also shared some tools that are both inside and outside the traditional leadership or organizational sphere. And so the next question we're going to be moving into is, well, if there's stories about us and maybe they're not true, then what happens when we start looking at the stories that we've built about other people? Because let's face it, those stories shape the relationships, how we lead, they shape our workplaces and our world just as much as the stories that people carry about us, maybe even more. And we're going to be asking how those stories influence conflict, leadership, trust, belonging, and connection.
Sounds so good. I'm Annette.
And I'm Sandra.
Welcome to Exposing the Hidden Reality. Before we dive in, take a second to hit follow or subscribe. It's the easiest way to know when a new conversation is ready for you to listen to.
Yeah, so I've been sitting with this conversation and asking, what are some of the stories that you carry about other people, Annette?
Sandra, I cannot stop thinking about when I'm having conversations with people. I keep asking, what's the story? What's the story? What's the story? It's really influenced these past 3 or 4 weeks of my life. I don't know if they're stories as much as judgment.
Oh, that's interesting.
I find myself making a lot of judgments about people's actions or behaviors, but attributing the judgment or the story to the person. And so I've been able to slow down a little bit and say, okay, this person's acting this way. This person is not this way, just to separate what I'm seeing and unravel how easy it is to tell a story about someone else. I
Oh,
think it's a brain shortcut.
yeah, that's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
It's been wild. What have you found these past few weeks when you're
Well,
thinking about the stories you tell about others?
it's been interesting because we've been going through a time where, things are coming up and we are finally being able to put words to thoughts and feelings. And so I've been, rewinding a lot of experiences I've had in my life. I recently wrote about my trip to Paris with my 10-year-old daughter and just really becoming aware of the stories I had about, was it a smart thing to have even done that with her at 10 to take her to Paris, just the two of us, right? What did it mean about me that I was willing to just go unemployed, you know, pull money from my savings? And yet, what we don't know is what's coming. And of course, what came after, it wasn't even 12 months. The world changed completely and we can never go back to that. Now I carry a different story about that time together. But it's in this season where the stars and the skies are pushing on buttons for the collective. And I know that's really woo. I've been sitting with this idea of stories, not just the stories we carry about ourselves, but the stories we carry about others. And even just coming in to this conversation, right? I was sharing about, even in our most intimate relationships, we carry stories about the people that we live with. And, are they listening? Are they paying attention to us? Do they care about us? Are they doing this on purpose to annoy the living crap out of us, right? No, I'm not talking about my husband much,
Much.
but it's true in the sense that, just little human foibles, right, get blown out of proportion sometimes. And if we can do that with the people we love the most, what happens when we're sitting across from somebody that really drives us insane?
Can we limit sitting across from that person?
Hmm, that's
Yeah.
a good point. Yeah. Like, I'm often sitting with women who come to me because they're either having a problem with their intimate relationship or they're having a problem with their boss.
Also, a very intimate relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bosses, they hold a lot of power in people's lives. And so when they're sitting there and they're saying, well, he said this and then he said that, or she said this and she said that. And, she's always doing that. And she's so disrespectful. And I can't believe X and Y. It's often allowing people to speak how they're feeling and also finding a way to challenge. Is that really true?
I love that the question we asked back at the beginning, so we were talking about this first, which is the stories we hear about ourselves and challenging ourselves to say, is that really true? What a full circle moment. Now we're back to when we talk about others and we're telling a story about them, asking, is that really true?
Yeah. Yeah. Like what else could be going on?
I love that question. That awareness that things may not be as we see them, or we only see a sliver of the picture and
Yes.
something big and vast is going on in that person's world and we don't know that.
Yeah. Like how many times has somebody cut you off in traffic and the immediate reaction is, "What?" Blank and I used to often get angry.
Yeah.
And um, as my children got older, um, I started saying, "We don't know what's going on. Maybe they're late because there's somebody close to them who's in the hospital and they're rushing to get there. Maybe they're late for an appointment that's impactful in their life. Maybe they're going through a really hard time. So, can we extend grace and compassion to the person, even though he might actually, or she might actually be a blankety blank? Can we at least say there might be a different story there?
Yeah. We're in our cars all the time, especially in Northeast Ohio. Here, it's the primary way people get around. Um, I think about the one moment you allow yourself to get distracted or your
Mm,
mind wanders, right? It could be not something sinister, but just something that happens and you drift into the other lane. So I think about those times where I caught myself making that mistake and then, okay, maybe I should give that person a mistake. Or like the other day, I didn't see a person coming. I was backing out. They were in my blind spot. I didn't see them. But then once I made eye contact with the other driver, I was like, hey, thank you, a little thank you wave. And she acknowledged. And I'm like, thanks. Thanks for not going off on me because I couldn't see you in the moment. And anyway, she wanted my parking spot. So she, there's that.
but But yeah, and it's funny when you say that because the immediate picture that comes into mind is that scene from Fried Green Tomatoes where Kathy Bates is I love that scene.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I
especially when
love
it
that.
comes full circle at the end and she yeah.
Yes.
But I think that's the real thing is we see a glimpse, we see a sliver of what's going on in that person's life. We have no clue about what's really happening for them. We don't know what pressure our bosses are under. We think we know.
Sure.
And one of the things that we talked about in the leadership episode was that, we have to, as leaders, we have to make decisions with imperfect awareness. And then we get blamed for those things, right? So, what if they've been pushed into a scenario where they have to make a call and the call doesn't go our way or it hurts us or they're really struggling with their part in having to make that call. I mean, I think people try to do a good job, right?
I agree.
It's It's just that most of the time, how we define good job looks different for everybody.
It can look very different. And let's also extend the same grace to people that work with us, like colleagues, peers, clients, vendors. And we have to extend that grace to people that work for us, our direct reports. And I was thinking, as you were saying, that we don't know what's going on with people, not the full picture. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. But also, people will only let you in so far.
Yes.
Right. So you're a professional friend. Maybe we see each other at the office Monday through Friday. I'm probably only going to let you in so deep as opposed to the Sandra that is my friend that I see socially and casually, and we've known each other for years. You can't expect the depth of relationship with all of the people that you work with. So you have to accept that at face value and then handle it. And I also want to go back to what you were saying. We never know what's going on. Again, wholeheartedly agree. And we have to open the lines of communication and
Yes.
say, Sandra, I don't exactly know what's going on. And if you're not ready to speak about it, that's also completely okay. However, this is what it appears to be to me that's been happening over these last couple weeks. Can you share the real perspective so we can understand? And then how do we want to move forward
Yeah.
this
So
situation?
beautiful. And I think I'd like to actually use that, if we may, to ask you, Annette, from your perspective as a career reinvention coach,
Yeah.
um, in particular, right? How do we manage that when we are going through something? There's two questions. The first question is, how do we deal with the fact that we need to hold somebody accountable as a leader, even when they're going through something?
Mm.
So, how do we, extend grace and compassion and understanding to that person in a way that's meaningful to them while still holding them to the standard of the job? So, that's
Mm.
question number one.
Okay.
And question number two is from the perspective of the employee, right? The one being led, the one who is part of the team. How do I separate the emotion of being held accountable from the grief of whatever, or anxiety or pressure of whatever might actually be going on under the surface that I may not be comfortable sharing?
As a leader, one of the big responsibilities that you have is to create a place where people feel safe coming to you and talking about it. So if I were a leader and you were coming to me, Sandra, to say something's going on at home and I need to be here, but I may not be at 100% performance, what can we do? Then, as your leader, I would offer you resources, whatever those resources would be. And I would ask you so many questions. What is it that you need during this time? What would support you? Um, what are you thinking about? What would work during this time? What are you capable of? Right. So understanding, right? Sandra, do you need a full on leave where you are away from the office for a period of time to handle what's happening? Or is this an ongoing issue and you might need support for months, years? Is it a health issue? Again, you can talk about these things at a very high level so that if you're not willing to give details or you don't want to share your health information or you don't want to share the personal details, you don't have to. But you do have to share enough to say, this is what I need, at least to ask for it in the moment. And if the leader that you're reporting to can't make that safe space for you, then you have to seek out someone who can, right? Is there an HR department? Is there a skip level leader that you feel comfortable and confident going to? And then as the employee, I would say that you should seriously consider what you need at this time and sketch it out. Is there like a good, better, best option? Is there like, if I had my way to get through this time, I would need all of these things. And then maybe this list of like, but if I could work from home a day a week, that would really support me right now. Is there that minimum qualification. And then I would say communication is the key throughout the process. And then as a leader, when holding you accountable, Sandra, I would probably up the level of check-ins.
Oh,
Right. So instead of waiting till the day of the deadline, maybe I'm checking in. I know we talked last week, Sandra, how's it going this week? How are you progressing towards this KPI, this achievable, this goal? And then I would need to rely on you to tell me this is where I'm at. And or do I need to evaluate your workload, your hours, your responsibilities? Do I have the flexibility to help you from this for a moment?
yeah.
The options are limitless, but by asking what you need, then I'm able to cater an approach. And even if I can't give you everything you need, maybe I can meet you 95%, 75%, 50%. And
And
maybe it's
and
enough
what
to get
strikes
through.
me as we're talking about this is how this looks to the other people in the
Mhm.
department, people that you can't share what's going on or what
Sure.
and who may be creating a story about the team member about, "Oh, they're getting away with murder. Look at that. They're never held accountable. I'm always the one who's pulling the weight."
I think this is a huge part of working on a team, being an employee, is that we just never know. So I'm going to give us a little analogy here. Do you
Yeah.
ever go to the doctor's office and you have a 2 p.m. appointment and at 3:15 you are still waiting in the waiting room?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I have
I'm sure
never
nobody
experienced that.
So here's what I like to try and remember. So oftentimes, if I'm at my appointment or I'm taking a loved one to an appointment and this happens, then right, the person that comes to get you from the waiting area is like, oh my gosh, Sandra, I'm so sorry. It's taken us forever, blah, blah, blah. And I always try and say, thank you for the apology. It's not necessary. I know you handle emergency situations here. And I'm grateful that you do that because today I'm not the emergency.
Yes.
But me waiting allows somebody else to go in front of me and handle their emergent situation because there is that time. I'm thinking about like my mom's eye appointment. Sometimes she's just there for a follow up and a checkup, but sometimes she's the emergency. Sometimes something happens and she needs to be seen today. And I know that puts somebody else behind an hour and 15 minutes or something like that. And so when you're at work and you see somebody getting preferential treatment that you haven't seen this situation before, it's new. Can you step back and say, oh, I know so and so might be going through a tough time right now. I'm assuming these changes, these concessions are helping that person through it. And then I hope that you can trust that your leader would give you the same grace needs assessment to address a challenge that might come up for you and your family. It's
Yeah,
hard to have that trust. I agree.
it is. It is, and I can speak from it from, like, a parenting perspective, right? I can't tell you the number of times that my kids have come to me and said, "So and so's your favorite. You never punish them the way you punish me." I'm always held to a different standard, um, and, the response is, "Well, Mom knows what you're capable of. You don't know what is going on between the conversations that I'm having with the other individual. And you have to trust that I'm being fair." It does not go over well with kids.
It doesn't go over well with adults in the workplace sometimes.
Yes. Yes. And I
And
think this
that is
is,
okay.
and I think that's where some of these stories come from, right? Like,
Mhm.
"Ugh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
my boss, he has favorites."
It's possible. As an ex-boss of other people, I can tell you sometimes there's favorites, no
Oh,
doubt.
God, yes.
You try not to act and behave based on those preferences, but it can happen.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying, Sandra, that we should ignore a systemic favoritism or systemic nepotism or a problem where somebody is given exception, 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 exception. But I can say that if somebody that hasn't needed that kind of help all of a sudden asks for help and is granted some sort of grace or special, activity, that it be granted, and that as a colleague or an employee, you say, I'm just going to watch this. I'm aware of it. I see the feelings it brings up in me, but I'm just going to notice them and then let them pass and assume that there's a reason for it. That would be the greatest thing you can do. I think applying a story to that person or your boss, or even a story you might be telling yourself, right? I am not my boss's favorite, right? That has nothing to do with you or the other person or the boss. You're writing this story, this false story about yourself that you don't need to. It's a very heightened awareness, Sandra. And I don't know that as a new leader, when I was newly promoted, when I was 27, I was aware of any of those things. I don't even know that I became aware until much, much, much later. And now, working with you all the time, I have a heightened awareness. So all I can hope is that these conversations help people get to that point of awareness where they can say, ooh, what's going on here? Why am I feeling this way? And
Yeah,
can I just notice these things and maybe address meeting or attach meeting later?
right. And it's also, I think, difficult to separate truth from fact. Or
Truth.
sorry, fact, a fact from what might actually, the story that we've created. Truth and
Mhm.
fact, hopefully, are the same thing.
I
But
hope.
yeah, well, let's not go there. Hopefully, fact and truth are the same thing. But separating facts from the stories that we make out of those facts is never going to be a perfect science because we are bringing all of our experiences to the situation, right? So, fact, you gave somebody extra time to complete a report. Fact, I didn't get the extra time to complete the report. Fact, that person got to work from home 3 days a week for 5 months. Fact, when I went in and asked for 3 days a week at home, you said no, I had to be in the office. Those are all fact in my fictional story. What I make that mean
Mhm.
is colored through my personal experiences, right?
Yes.
My experiences of you as a boss, my experiences of being valued, my experience of how I've been held accountable, my hurts from years ago when I was a little kid and the teacher gave me an F on something I worked really hard on.
Yeah.
All those things color how I process all of those facts. And so there's not truth in the story. There's only truth in the fact. The story is where we need to bring some curiosity to it. What upsets me about this story? What am I making it mean? What am I making it mean about them? What am I making it mean about my colleague? What am I making it mean about me? How can
What
I
a
bring,
beautiful reflection.
yeah, what can I bring as curiosity to this examination?
Mhm.
Because, and I wrote this down so I'd remember to say it. The moment we believe that we know why someone behaved the way that they did, we stop being curious enough to ask what's really happening. The moment I know you did this because you don't like me, I stop asking what's really going on for me. What's
Yeah.
really going on for me is I'm hurt. I'm sad.
So how can we build this practice of pausing? And oh my goodness, we've talked about pausing for the past, like, I feel like month and a half. But how can we pause, notice that we're in kind of this story spiral, and then can we just stop for a moment to say, what about this is setting me off?
Yeah.
And then we can ask, okay, am I assigning a story? Am I assigning meaning to that story? I have no idea what's really happening. And I just stop in the moment.
Yeah.
That is sometimes what I don't do. And then I'm woo off and acting on the initial reaction because that's what it is, right? Making the story assigning meaning. It's a reaction to what we've seen or experienced.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally. I do this every day. Every time my husband doesn't do something I asked him to do, the poor man,
The poor man.
poor man. I asked you to pick this up on the way home from dropping off X and Y. Why didn't you pick it up? I forgot. Oh, he always forgets. I'm not important, right?
Yeah.
What is the story that we're making it mean, right? Does he really not care about me? I don't think so.
I agree. That's not true. He does
Is he
not care about it.
forgetful? Is he forgetful? Yeah.
Sure.
Did he get in a mode where he was, like, driving home, and it was like, "Oh, I passed right by," and I'm like, I'm focused and yes, absolutely. Is it annoying to me? Sure as heck it is,
Yeah.
but I can't make it mean something huge. It's just, we're getting to a certain age.
So I have a question because
Yeah.
this pulls up a great thing. When we notice patterns of behavior
Yes.
in someone else that maybe is impacting how we interact with the person. And
Yeah.
maybe it's a colleague, maybe it's your significant other, maybe it's a loved one, and we want to bring it up. How do we
The
bring it
dreaded "we
up?
need to talk."
Yes. But how do we bring that up? How do I say, Sandra, that is the third time you've driven past the Staples store and didn't return this Amazon return? It's sitting in the truck and
All
it's.
right, don't beat up on me for crying out loud.
But so
Look,
how do
let's just
we?
be happy it made it into the car in the first place, okay?
It is 50% of the way there. Right. So
I'm, like, horribly guilty for doing that, just so
oh
we're
my
clear.
God, this is
So
so me.
so
Listen, I've
so
kept
you
more
hit
things
my
that should be returned.
yeah, you hit my,
Well, isn't that funny? Because I bring it up because that's like one of the things that I have trouble handling, right? So I'm not attributing the story to anybody else. It's one of the things I struggle with. In fact, that thing I showed you earlier that has to go back to the Staples. And I'm thinking about when am I going to do that?
I know, I have
So
a pile
how,
here.
right. So how do I say, hey, Sandra, this is something I've noticed and it's concerning. How do I talk to you about that and maybe I can only control what I can control, which is me. But how can I bring that up without assigning a story to it, without assigning a judgment about you to it, so that hopefully you can hear it and receive it and say, oh, I've been so busy. I completely and I don't need to go by that store again until next Thursday. Is it going to be too late? Should we do it now? Should we take an extra special trip out? Like, how do we do that? How do we approach it without building a deep story right now?
Mm, I love this question, and I'm also wishing that I could, like, quickly and I won't do it quickly, but quickly go over to my computer. So I'm hoping that you know the acronym because I've been sitting here while you've been asking me the question, kind of going, what's so the acronym is BICA, BICA.
Okay.
And
What's
my
that?
HR representative told me about this, and I thought it was great. Now, BICA, I think, works really well in a corporate environment. In a personal environment, I like to use the withhold process,
Okay.
which is a different process altogether. And the only reason I like to use the withhold process in a personal interaction is because it requires a little bit more vulnerability than, say, in a corporate environment I would be willing to go down, right?
Okay.
So BICA, I know B stands for behavior. Here's the behavior. You keep driving by the Staples.
Or the behavior is you haven't returned the items.
Right. The impact. The impact is it's sitting on our credit card. We're
Yeah.
getting charged. And, maybe it's accruing interest. And we could stop all that if you simply returned it. C is, I don't remember what the C is. And then A is action. Here's what I want to see you do.
Okay.
So BICA works really well in a corporate environment where it's stating the behavior, stating the impact, whatever C stands for. And if Lauren's listening, Lauren can, punch in here. This, Sandra, it's this. Why can't you remember? And then A stands for
Consequence.
consequence. The next time you come home without having delivered the staples or returned the staples, I'm going to charge you $10.
Love this.
So it works really well in a corporate setting, especially as a leader. And it, even from managing up, although I'd have to be a little bit more careful about how I managed up, right? Here's, you're constantly giving me the agenda 5 minutes before we walk into the meeting. The consequences that I walk in unprepared, or the impact is that I walk in unprepared and I don't know if I have what I need. The consequence of that is that you don't get what you need out of our time together, and I don't. I can't be productive, and I'm always stressing about it. So the next time you do this, I'm going to stick to the original. And what I'd like you to do is send me the agenda 5 hours or 6 hours before the event. I mean, it's a clean conversation. It takes the emotion out of it.
It does. And it takes the judgment out. It takes the assignment of a behavior. It just literally says, this is how I am experiencing the situation that is happening between us. I love that. What's the withholding model?
The withhold is a little bit more vulnerable because it requires you doing some work. And the work is, what is the story that I am attributing to your behavior?
Okay.
What am I making it mean? So in the same example, right? Annette, every time you come home without having returned items to Staples, it really bothers me. And it bothers me because I feel that you're not prioritizing our relationship and what it means to me to have you follow through on that. And because that's the story that I've been attributing to it, I've been withholding myself from you. I've been angry. I've been frustrated. I have been unavailable and unsympathetic towards you. And I realized as I was processing this that that is my story. That is not you. It's not what you intended to do. And so I want to apologize for my part in having withheld my affection and my support to you because of the story that I was making up in my head about why this was happening. And I take full accountability for that.
That sounds like a very healthy conversation. I agree. It requires vulnerability, preparation. You've had to process this already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have
You
to
can't
ask
go
yourself,
in with like fire and brimstone emotion. Like
fire and
seriously.
brimstone? Like, no. No, because it requires that you do your work. Why is this so hurtful to me? What is the story? What am I making it mean, right? And I no matter how much I love my boss, I'm probably not going to get that vulnerable with my boss.
Correct. Right.
But I would with my children. I would with my
Correct.
closest friends. I would with my intimate partner. Absolutely. You're going to do
And
those things.
I could see that happening with maybe a long-term boss that you've reported to for many years, or a long-term employee that you've worked with over the years. And I could see it coming after very many BICA conversations,
Yes.
right? Because it was conversation, 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 no change in action. The consequences are not having any. impact or effect any longer. Now I need to say that I'm withholding new assignments. I'm withholding a promotion. I'm withholding something seriously career impacting because XYZ is not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tough conversations. Tough
They are
conversations.
tough conversations. I think
Yeah.
this might be a good place for us to cut this episode. What do you think?
I think it's good because I feel like we have a solution to offer someone that is concerned about telling a story about one of their peers, loved ones, whoever they're interacting with, and is interested in learning how to deal with.
Yeah. Thank you for joining me in this discussion.
Well, thank you for giving me Bicca and withholding. I feel
Well,
like,
you can thank Lauren.
oh, thanks, Lauren. I don't know you, but I really appreciate these tools you've supplied us with.
Well, the withhold is Tanya, but
Oh,
because
Tanya and Lauren,
Tanya and Lauren, yes.
you better text them and let them know we're
Okay.
talking about that. Okay. I don't want them to have their ears ringing and they're thinking, what is going on in the universe today? Wonderful. Let's go ahead and end here. And Sandra, if people are listening and they want to be part of the continuing conversation, head over to exposingthehiddenreality.com, join our newsletter, and we will be happy to include you in on some special confidential stuff that not everybody gets to know. I know. We'll make it juicy, Sandra.
Oh.
All right. I'll see you next week. And I think we're going to be finishing up this conversation about stories.
Yes.
And,
We're going to be talking about stories in a process.
Stories in a process. Excellent. We'll
Tune
see you
in.
then. Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.